Good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. We're just here on Mondays to help you, give you some information that will help your marriage get a little better. You know, by the information that we provide for you, that we research and basically a lot from our own experiences. So with that said, we just want to thank y'all for coming in with us tonight.
Well, y'all know we represent our church ministry,
Right.
Crown Kingdom Cultural Center. If you're not a member of our church Facebook page, we do invite you to join it. Does not mean you're a member of the church, although you are welcome to join. We do have both virtual membership as well as local membership. But you can join the Facebook page just so you can get notifications of the classes that come on to help strengthen your life. It's for the body of Christ, not just for our individual church ministry. So the content on the Facebook page, you'll find something on there helpful for marriage, for grief and loss, and just for life in general.
Right.
The sermons are largely centered around very practical steps, practical biblical steps that you need to just live a better quality life internally and externally. So we feel the content is helpful to anybody who's interested in a Christian perspective or a way of living a happy life. And so we invite you to join the page so that you can have access to that content more readily. It also makes it easier to comment
Right.
if you're a member of the page as well. I think people have had trouble commenting if they're not actually a member of the page. So we encourage you to do that. There's no commitment on your part. It just allows you to participate and to receive what we're giving.
Mm-hmm.
Share this broadcast tonight. We encourage you to share it. We encourage you to like it. That helps us to see who we are reaching. We're not at the status where we're making money from this. I mean, with the support y'all give, eventually it could get to that point, but our goal right now is just to reach people, to help marriages. And so we encourage you to get the word out, to share, to be a part of strengthening someone's marriage and making it better. You could be a part of doing that. So who's that? Oh, Alfreda Brinson. Look at that. Got family folks. First one on tonight. Hey, Frida. Thanks for joining in. So, as more people start to come in, I see Sheena has joined and is sharing. There's more people, and I can't quite see all the names, but people are starting to slowly come in. So we're going to get ready to get started.
Yeah, man. You know, we've taken a couple of Mondays off, but we're pretty consistent on Monday night, you know, for the past 2 years of coming on. So if we ever miss a Monday, just go back and look at the old broadcast and you can get the same effect. You can get the same teaching. Like when you read the Bible sometime, you can read a scripture and get an understanding from it when you first read it. You go back and read that scripture later on, you get a second kind of revelation. And actually, that's what happens with me when I go back and view some of our previous broadcasts. I get something from it, even though I'm the one that's teaching it, but really it's the Holy Spirit teaching through us. So we just want to thank y'all for going through that. So tonight, we're going to talk about being a supportive being a supportive spouse. Mm-hmm. That is really important when you're growing and developing together. You know, this is one of the things. If you don't show support during a certain time in that marriage, it can cause that marriage to feel like it's starting to fail. So you need to be in a position where that person understands that, you know, we are for each other. I love you and I want to help you become the best that you can be in your life as we live this life together. So the thing we're going to talk about first is what are some things that happen for a person to be considered non-supportive. And, you know, as we go through this, if something, you know, cross your heart or you think of some things that a spouse that show a spouse is not being supportive, you know, put it in the comments. We always welcome your comments of what may be non-supportive to you. And sometimes those comments can help the person that you're trying to get to understand that they can read it and see what you're saying better than they can read what you're saying better than you can say it to them. Mm-hmm. So I just want to, we're going to start with that. What does it mean to be a non-supportive spouse? I want to go ahead and start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
First, and this is not an exhaustive list.
Right.
There are absolutely more characteristics that can be added. So let's be clear about that. We're only, our time is limited.
Right.
We have 5 characteristics that we want to share with you, or signs that we want to share with you that show that someone is not supportive. So the first one we have is constant fault finding.
Oh.
So when someone spends more time fault finding in their interactions with you than they do supporting you and congratulating you and giving you praise, words to help build you up, but instead they tend to constantly tell you what's wrong with you, or to find fault in the things that you do. That's not a way of being supportive. And so as a spouse, if you find yourself being the one who's doing a lot of the fault finding, you need to recognize that that's not a supportive behavior.
Right.
And so, we want you to not just look to examine your spouse, but also to examine yourself as well. Mm-hmm. So fault finding with your spouse, and that's different from having given constructive feedback, especially when someone asks for it. And we'll talk about honesty a little bit later. That's different than just constantly finding things that are wrong with somebody, which usually that indicates a weakness within that person. And it kind of spews out when it spills over into them fault finding with others.
All right. Another point is communication is lackluster. And what we mean by that is when you're talking to somebody, you give the old short answer on a consistent basis. Now, sometimes the short answer may be fine. But if there's no open communication, y'all can't ever find time to really get down and sit down and talk with one another, people gonna feel non-supported in that relationship. Every time somebody say something to you like, yeah, and don't give any feedback, and that's all you giving, and there's no real communication on a consistent basis. I continue to say that because sometimes you do have the short answer, like, not today. And when you have the short answer, you you feel like talking about this right now. Do you, is there another time to come back and better speak with you about what we want to talk about? And that person may just need a little space. But when that person is not really communicating with you at all, don't really feel like they want to be in your presence, that's a problem. And the other person can feel like, okay, that I'm feeling like I'm not being supported.
Right. Or
in this
like
relationship.
there's just a lack of interest. And even if it gets to the point to where, you're going throughout the day and not communicating with each other, you think about all that distance and space, even from the time you get up in the morning, if you're not really speaking much, getting ready, you go off to work all day and have no communication during the day, come back home, and then communication is short or kind of irrelevant, not quality. That's what we're considering lackluster communication. The term, well, we didn't choose that term. We are using a source that we found online as a guide.
Right.
We didn't agree 100% with the list and with the choices and the conversation on the list, so we're bringing our own perspective to it. But we did like to use that term that this, what was it called? The Power Positivity was the name of the article that we referenced, and or the source that printed the article. And we did like that term, that communication becomes lackluster. And so that's what it is. So it's, you may be speaking to each other, but it's not of any quality. And that can happen. Marriage can get mundane like that if you allow it to, but it does leave a person feeling unsupported. Because if I can't talk to you about my thoughts, and we're married, that should be a level of intimacy there that allows me to speak my mind, to have conversation with you, to kind of mull over and share my thoughts with you, in an intimate space that belongs to just us. And if we can't do that, that's going to leave your spouse feeling unsupported.
Right.
That kind of goes into not spend the next point, which is no quality time. Right. Not spending good time together.
And you think about it. If you get up and go to work in the morning, most people are working from 8 to 10 hours a day. And then you sleep 6 to 8 hours a day. So that's anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. You are doing something other than spending time with your partner. You got to make it a point to spend time with your partner uh, on any given day, because that time that you have, and a lot of us, for me and my wife, we like a little me time too at some point in the day, because you don't spend that time at work. You need some time to relax your mind, but you need to give your partner some quality time during that day. And the best way that we've seen to come up with quality time with each other is to schedule it.
Yeah.
Scheduling, and we'll get to that too. Scheduling quality time helps the relationship. You may not be able to get nothing but an hour in during the week, each day during the week, or then you just schedule that date night and you put that time into the date night.
But the thing about it is, there's 24 hours in a day. If you can't carve out at least an hour of quality time, whether it's all at once or spread out, but to spend some time with your spouse, what are you even doing? That's your spouse. That's the person closest to you as you're taking this journey through life. That's the person you chose to be committed to for life. And if you don't have time in the course of a day to spend a little bit of quality time together, that's something that needs to be examined. That's something you need to rethink.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, spending that, no quality time definitely leaves a person feeling unsupported, and as if they don't really have a partner.
Right.
We talked about in church, it might have been just this Sunday in the lessons Bishop talked, or maybe in the previous Sunday, where he was talking about how being alone and being lonely are not one and the same. Enjoy your time alone. Being alone doesn't mean that you have to be lonely. Because there are lots of people who are married who are not physically alone, but they are certainly very lonely. So we encourage you to be aware that within your marriage, make sure your spouse isn't left lonely, even though you're physically together. It's not one and the same.
No, it's not. As we continue to talk about this topic, being a non-supportive spouse also could involve verbal abuse. And sometimes in my experience in life, a verbal abusive partner or spouse can become a phically abusive partner or spouse.
That's
but
in
we're
your
talking about
experience
spouses.
In what way?
I've just seen it.
Okay.
Arguments.
I don't want you giving the wrong message.
Yeah, no, not me and her, but I've seen relatives and people that are not relatives, are verbally abusive to their spouse, and most of the time that argument or that situation turns out to be physical. So why even get yourself to that point, and where you want to actually show a physical abuse to your spouse? There are a lot of things that can be done before you get physically abusive.
And and even beyond, even if you don't even consider the physical abuse, being verbally abusive is such a harsh interaction between the two, between two people. And so the verbal abuse is enough to recognize that it's very much a problem. It's not okay to excuse it. Some people grow up as children in their childhood experience. They grow up to where verbal abuse might be common, and they might take that as being something normal, but it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an adult, it's important to recognize that even though you grew up with that verbal abuse, it is not healthy, and it is not something that should be a part of a healthy marriage relationship. The verbal abuse should not be tolerated. It needs to be changed. There's nothing supportive about having a spouse who is verbally abusive to you, and you really can't. You do yourself and the relationship a disservice to allow it or to excuse it. It's not okay.
That's true. Last thing that a person may see as being a non-supportive spouse is lack of physical contact, lack of physical touch, which is one of the love languages. It may not be yours, but at some point in that relationship, physical touch is one of the important things that need to happen between you and your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's has diminished to the point where, you're like two ships passing in the night, you need to get some help and get some help quick from somebody that you trust. Because go ahead.
Why does that require intervention?
Well, if that's how you're living, if you're living like a person, that's passing like two ships in the night, you don't recognize that person is there.
But you don't
totally
think that's
dismissed.
easy to resolve or to address?
I think it could be, but if you are to the point where you just don't really care about the other person and it don't bother you, then that may require some help. If the other person don't recognize it, go ahead and say what you got to say. You got all these facial.
I'm just trying to give you time to say what you want to say.
I said it.
I'm not bashful.
Yeah, I mean, if I done said something that you want to make a point on, you know what you do.
Well, I just don't feel like a lack of physical touch is necessarily a red flag to say you need an intervention. I mean, I feel like that's something that's easy to remedy, as in touch. Take the time, be the initiator of the touch, to take, even if it's a matter of just sitting near each other and physically being near each other.
Mm-hmm.
I've been like that with you. I'm like, you act like I can't touch you, or don't be so defensive. I want to physically touch you. And so if you are not naturally a person who seeks out touch, which I'm not, but as far as your spouse goes, it's just an easy way to connect, either when you're in a public space or sometimes even at home. You don't necessarily have to be doing anything, just to be near each other, to sit together, to have some kind of physical touch. That helps show the person without words. It just shows that you're there and you're supportive. Right. So I feel like the lack of physical touch is something that you just need to communicate about it, or even to say, or to just do it. Just do so, be the change that you're wanting to see in your relationship. Go ahead and be that change instead of sitting around sulking about the lack of it. Why don't you initiate it? Why don't you be that change? And it really don't even have anything to do with sex, because people can have sex, within a marriage, and it can be just out of duty, not necessarily it being, quality time together or touch that's really meaningful. It just kind of depends on your individual situation, but we're really not just talking about sex included, but just being able to physically be together, to touch each other, to show some level of support or affection. Yeah,
because that reminds me of something. This weekend we went to Savannah to celebrate one of our daughter's birthday, and we were walking around a mall, and I totally missed opportunity to hold my wife's hand, because we were walking, and sometimes when you walk close to somebody, your hands hit, and we're like, oh, must be walking too close to her. She was like, oh, you don't want to hold my hand? I'm like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. And I totally missed that signal. Did I not?
Yes, you did.
So I was like, hold on, missed that. And I was like, yeah, we can hold hands. Let's go.
That was not your reaction.
Okay, how did I react then?
You reacted very, I don't know the right word, contrary.
I wasn't ugly, though, was it?
You were contrary.
I didn't think I was ugly people, but if I were contrary, I'm sorry about that.
Well, we would have to ask your spouse to get a different perspective.
Well, I'm actually not.
Move on.
But anyway, those are the points that we want to talk about a person that's not being supportive. Now, how does supporting your spouse? You can basically take the opposite of what we've already talked about and show in those ways that you can be supportive to a spouse. But when you talk about a supportive spouse, and our bishop has taught us to study your spouse. Study that person, let them know, pay attention to them in order to be a supportive spouse. Understand what their likes and what their dislikes are, some of the things that may aggravate them, some of the things that may not aggravate them. That lets that person know that you have their what makes them comfortable in mine.
Right. It shows a level of interest.
Mm-hmm. So
we have, I don't know if we made the transition.
Oh, I thought I was then, but you go ahead. You can talk about it.
Okay, so at this point, we're covering 5 things that you can do to make sure that you are being supportive to your spouse. And the first was to study your partner, pay attention to them, pay attention to those details.
Mm-hmm.
I always am mindful and try to remind him, don't make judgments about what to do for me based on what you would say for women in general. Oh, women like flowers. Okay, but do I like flowers? Or women like perfume. Do I like perfume?
Are you asking me right now?
I'm asking you right now.
You don't like the perfume.
I do like some perfumes.
No.
You gonna tell me?
Have I ever bought you any perfume?
Okay, but
that you like?
I know what I like and what I don't like.
Okay.
I do not like most perfumes. I'm very particular about fragrances.
Mm-hmm.
But that goes to the point of what we're talking about,
right.
which is studying your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
What you have done is you've decided I don't like any perfumes, and that's not true. I don't wear perfumes because I have a hard time finding those that I actually like.
But let's ask this: am I in a safe space for not purchasing you perfume?
Yeah, I don't really care for
That's
it too much. So, but most people. What I'm saying is, you have to take the time to know your spouse well enough to know if they like. Do I like flowers?
Oh yeah,
I do like flowers.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Specifically, what kinds of flowers do I like?
Oh, you go on about tulips. You like how tulips look, and what's the other? Calla lilies.
Have you ever bought me those?
Not calla lilies, but I bought you tulips.
I'm not that particular about flowers, to be very honest. They are nice. They're just nice to have. I like things that look beautiful,
right.
And so, and then like for you, sometimes he likes things that I don't really care too much for, like these plastic bracelets. They just are not my favorite.
They're rubber.
Rubber, not plastic?
Not in my book. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I just call them rubber.
Yeah. So sometimes I just have to bite the bullet and get for him what he likes, even if it's something that I'm not particularly fond of. But I'll try to find some level of compromise, something that I don't mind seeing him in that he also likes.
And with her not, and we're just going to talk about this for a little while, and she don't like strong scents. That's basically what it comes down to. She bought me a cologne, because I like to wear cologne. She bought me a cologne that she could basically tolerate, and she liked the smell of. Did you not? Mm-hmm. And that's how, if I'd have bought the cologne, I'd have bought something that could have offended her. So instead of me going to buy a cologne that I would personally wear, she wouldn't have bought something that she liked that could be, that she likes. And
now
that's
we had to get to that point.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Let's talk about that for just a second.
Okay.
So how did that go with the you are very fond? Is it fair to say you're very fond of fragrances?
I am.
Male fragrances, and I'm not.
Nope.
So how has that evolved over time? How have we worked out that problem? Because it's a problem.
Well, it was a problem. Yeah.
I get headaches from strong scents.
Mm-hmm.
I get sinus symptoms. It bothers my nose. My sense of smell is way too strong.
I think when we actually got to the point of where we can come to an agreement, I think we just say, okay, you buy something that you like that I can wear.
Right. Because in our younger years, it was a battle. That's when he's skipping over that he's not telling that the truth of it exactly. You don't want to tell it. But the truth of the matter is he was determined that he would buy those fragrances. I'm not going to call them cheap. But fragrances from the barbershop, he was buying all kind of fragrances. So many things would pique his interest, and I could not stand it. Soaps that were really strong. It would wake me up in the night. If he came in and took a shower and bathed in that soap, I would wake up out of my sleep smelling that stinky soap. And
we're talking about, if you're coming in late, we're talking about how you study your partner to show them support.
Right.
Okay.
And so that was extremely offensive to me. And for, I would say, some years, he was not bothered or did not change his behaviors in response to my preference. I think he was just assuming I was being a prima donna. Is that fair to say?
No, just a little picky.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was not going away, and I was getting very angry by his constant lack of paying attention to how his choice was impacting me. And as we grew in maturity, it finally got to the point that he would buy something and ask me to approve it or disprove it. But I think it took a lot for him to mentally get to the point to say, okay, I need to seek her approval for what I'm going to wear on my body. Because, on one hand, it's like, it's my body. I wear what I want to wear.
And it became, when she started talking about it causing her some health issues, you kind of got to pull back and like, okay, maybe this is messing with her health-wise.
Breathing.
Yeah, so that's where
Brittany says the same thing with her.
Well,
it bothers the sinuses. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So some people you just got to know your spouse in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not okay to say, oh, women love this fragrance. Surely you like this fragrance. Women love this fragrance. But if your spouse doesn't appreciate it, then what are you even doing?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going.
All right. Be truthful with them, and honest. There's trust and there's comfort in being honest with your spouse. Not abusive. There's a difference between being verbally abusive and being honest with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
When you use honesty, you're doing it what I think you're doing it in a sense of love. If the person is, I don't know, if they're not doing something like they should, you're not, living up to what I see that you could be, being honest with that person, don't call them lazy and stupid, unmotivated. Don't do that kind of stuff. You tell them in a way, look here, you're not reaching your potential. You could be doing way more than what you're doing right now. There are things that you could say to a person that can cause them to feel supportive, even though you're trying to motivate them and you're not being a crutch or a hindrance to them by getting them say, oh yeah, you sitting on that couch all day, you're going to eventually get it. It's going to come to you. God gonna bring that to you. All you're doing is laying on that couch there. You're lying to that person.
Yeah. It's important too, I think, to know your spouse and knowing how to talk to them about hard truths that may need to be discussed. For example, sometimes asking a person questions so they can kind of examine it for themselves. I'm thinking about I don't even know what we're talking about, but I mentioned to you about work, about your job, about administration, what were your plans, professionally. And I think you were saying, you go through retire, and once you retire, work somewhere else, and go over in South Carolina, keep doing what you're doing. And what did I ask you? Is that all you want to do? Because you have capabilities of doing more. You have good administrative skill. You're a very resourceful person. And from that conversation, he came to the conclusion that he did want to do something different, which led to you moving into pursuing administrative position within the school.
Uh-huh.
Is that how that happened?
Yeah. I mean, we had several conversations about it because, when she was asking me these questions, I'm like, yeah, I want to coach, gonna be this head coach, and
just total
that's where I was with it. And as our conversations grew, and she wasn't bothering me about it. It wasn't one of those things where you need to be an administrator. You can't be doing the coaching all your life. What you gonna do with coaching? No, she didn't come at me like that. She understood that was something.
But that's how I felt. I felt like you were wasting your talent. You were doing a lot with coaching. Not to say that was wasteful, because you were definitely being very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was very clear that you had a lot of skills that would be conducive to you being an administrator. To me, that just seemed like an even more natural fit, even more so than the coaching. You can coach. You were a very good coach. You reached the kids in an amazing way. But to me, it was very obvious that there was more. Mm-hmm. And I knew that you didn't see it. And so instead of me coming at you like you were giving a demonstration, because that is kind of how I felt in my head. Like, is this really all you going to do? You capable of doing a lot more. But I didn't want to downplay what you were already doing. And I'm a big believer that everybody's job is up to them. I don't think it's right to try to force somebody to do a job that you want them to do. And so it worked out that way, that there was flexibility, that you were able to hear what I was saying, because it was just several gentle conversations over time, and it sort of got you thinking. But it had to be your own decision.
Right.
It wasn't my choice to make.
And
I wasn't going to do the work for you.
Yeah, and that goes into number 3. Even in that conversation, because she knew my heart for coaching, she knew I was a decent coach, and she knew I could do that. I think I told her, I said, well, I could coach with my hands behind my back and do it without even really thinking about it. She said, you really want to do that all your life? So you want to do something to challenge yourself.
Right.
And administration has challenged me. It has some challenging points, but it's been satisfying to me too. So I think we were able to get to that place because of this next point. We are safe with each other. We don't try to put ourselves on the other person. I can come to her and be like, well, Trina, that's not good. And most times I understand the conversation we're going to have, and we just going to have a conversation and be done with it. It ain't going to be one of those yelling, you don't know, you just shut up and leave me alone. And that's not a safe place if you're going to react to a person who sees something in you that you could be doing different. That person, your spouse, needs to be a safe place to bring any topic that they feel like they can talk to you about.
And also, even just from being out in the world and going through everything we go through on a daily basis, it's nice to be able to come home to a spouse where you don't have to be focused on your interactions with your spouse being a difficult place, but getting your relationship to where it's a place of comfort. It's a place where you can vent if you need to, and not have to worry about it having repercussions. But it's a safe place where you can be yourself. You can be open, honest. You can relax. You can say nothing if you need to. You just know that you're together and you're safe, and that you're in the presence of somebody who cares about you. And so that's a level of safety. That's being supportive. That's a huge part of being and having a supportive spouse, is being able to be safe with one another and not have to be even. We're also talking about physical safety,
right?
Not worrying about somebody going to haul off and hit you, or that you're going to do one thing wrong and that person's going to have a adverse reaction. That's actually toxic to be in a relationship like that. But just have it being a safe place for each other. That's a good characteristic of a supportive spouse. And really what we just talked about is the next one, which is to encourage your spouse's growth. That's very supportive. When you have somebody that can encourage you to grow at your own pace, not to be pushy, but to, let you know that they see more in you, or to support you when you want more for yourself. To have a spouse that would say, oh, well, maybe you can. I understand you're interested in exploring dance or art, even though you're in a different field. What can we do to help support you explore that idea? One thing with you going back to school, working on another degree, we've had to make some adjustments with your time and your commitment to the family, to try to lighten some of that. So I take a little more of that responsibility, and I give it to Charity too. She don't have a choice, but we take a little bit of that responsibility off of him, or rearrange some of his responsibilities so that he can have time freed up to do what it takes to earn this other 3rd or 4th degree, whatever degree you're getting, degrees, because that's what he chooses, what he wants to do. And so just supporting that. And the same for me. I didn't want to work full time. I wanted to be able to take care of the home in a way that I couldn't do if I was working full time, but I also wanted to work. And so we have made adjustments over the years to accommodate my being able to be flexible as a contract therapist instead of working for a salary.
Right.
That was an adjustment that we've had to make, to the extent that it affects even when taxes come around. He has to have more taxes taken out of his check to accommodate for the tax load that comes around at the end of the year for me. And so that's an adjustment that we have agreed to make And we made that decision together, and we stand in that together. So that's the part of encouraging
and being supportive
of one another.
Right. And then as we just continue to talk about this last point we're going to talk about is make time for each other. Just we talked about the lack of quality time. You need to learn to have quality time with each other. And we get quality time on our date nights. And, it's just what we do. We've made the commitment to have a date night. Sometimes it may be on a Friday, it may be on a Saturday, maybe on a Sunday. But we've made time for that.
And we do not do well when we do not have that quality time together.
Right.
And we've had to come to terms with that we get too distant and too frustrated with one another when we don't have enough quality time during the week or at some point during the week. Like I said, it's 24 hours in a day. If
you get disconnected.
You get disconnected. And then that becomes frustrating. And that weakens your bond. And people respond different ways when they don't feel supported or when they don't feel supported. Really is the right word, or you don't feel connected. That's the word I'm looking for. And so we have found, some people do date night once a month. Good for y'all. That ain't our testimony over here. Okay, we need something every week or we get disconnected and it's not good. So we do what works for us, and that's what works for us.
That's what works for us.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's what we want to talk to y'all about as far as being supportive, recognizing if you're not being supportive, and also making sure that you do what it takes for you to be a supportive spouse. And we ask, we hope you'll share this conversation with your spouse so that the two of you can even look at how you can be supportive of one another. How can you be more supportive to your spouse, and letting your spouse discover how they can be more supportive to you, and sharing your heart. Even as we go through this list, it's a good opportunity for you to bring up what's most important to you, not to find fault, but for you to recognize and say, yeah, I would like more support. I would like to be able to vent a little more, or to come home and let's just have some quality time together each day. How can we figure that out? Let's make it work.
All right. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, with that said, that's the end of our lesson for the night. Marriage Maintenance Monday is a good title to Monday nights for us. The marriage maintenance Monday.
You're not changing the name.
No, I'm not changing the name. We just good.
Marriage Mondays.
Yeah, but we just want to say thank you for joining us tonight, and we just want to pray that your marriage and your relationships get better based on the information that we've given you, as we've been directed by the Holy Spirit, and that we just want to encourage you to continue to be great. You got any closing remarks?
No, people just saying thanks for sharing, and you all are very welcome. It's our pleasure to let our struggles benefit you all, so that it kind of makes it all make sense, some of the things we've been through. So we're happy to share it. We know that the problems that we faced over the years are very common. We've learned that.
Right.
Didn't always know that, but we've learned that they are very common problems. And so even without infidelity, without abuse, marriage can still be quite a challenge, and you need some skills to do it well.
That's what the lady and the coach do.
So that's what we're here for, is to share the marriage skills that we've learned and to step up your game.
Right. And just understand this. We're knee deep in this thing with you. We hadn't reached that point yet. We're still learning and developing. And with that said, from the lady and the coach, we love y'all. Good night.